In a small Galilean village of the 1st century, every Jewish household was a universe of constant activity and careful attention. Preparing the fire was more than a domestic task. It was a daily ritual that sustained life itself. Before the sun rose, smoke was already rising from inner courtyards. Each family had to ensure they had embers ready for cooking, heating, and, above all, safety within the home. Lighting a fire was not simply striking wood. It was an art learned and passed down through generations, essential for survival. At the heart of the domestic kitchen stood the tannur, a clay oven, cylindrical or slightly conical, used for baking bread and heating food. Nearby, the family arranged the kiraim, a cooking area made of stones or clay, where clay pots could be placed, water heated, or pans kept above glowing embers. The placement of the fire inside the house required precision. It had to be close enough to be practical but far enough to avoid igniting the straw roofs or mud walls. Houses, built of stone with flat wooden and clay roofs, required skillful management of smoke and temperature, as ventilation was limited and windows were few. In Judea, wood was scarce and expensive. As a result, families relied on alternatives: dry branches, thorns, olive pruning remnants, nutshells, and dried manure were the most common fuels. Each material burned at a different rate, and families had to combine them carefully to keep embers alive. In modest homes, hours could be spent collecting and preparing these materials, ensuring that every spark was fully utilized. Keeping the fire alive overnight was a constant concern. Embers were often covered with ash to extend their heat, and some households placed small hot stones among the coals to maintain warmth for hours. The Sabbath posed a special challenge. According to Jewish law, lighting a fire was forbidden from sunset on Friday until the stars appeared on Saturday. Yet daily life could not stop. Fire had to be prepared in advance. Families would ignite embers before the Sabbath and maintain them with careful methods, such as covering them with ash, so the oven could still provide heat and cooking throughout the day of rest. This preparation required knowledge, patience, and discipline, and it was an act of faith demonstrating how practical life and religious observance were inseparably intertwined. In this everyday context, Jesus' words about light, lamps, fire, and bread take on deep meaning. When he spoke of lamps burning, he was not referring only to sources of illumination, but to life itself, which must be tended with care and attention. The fire in the home symbolized sustenance, protection, and divine presence. Embers carefully maintained through the night reminded each family that faith was not abstract but something lived in routine. Baking bread, preparing food, lighting fires, and caring for others were acts of obedience and devotion. The tannur and kiraim did more than cook food. They taught lessons of patience, foresight, and respect for daily life. Each baked loaf and maintained ember was a tangible reminder of God's provision and the interdependence within the community. When Jesus spoke of bread and fire, he referred to these simple yet profound realities: light that guides, flame that protects, warmth that sustains. Understanding these practices allows us to imagine how the earliest Christians lived their faith practically, amidst the smells of smoke, flour, and damp earth, where each act of care became an offering to life and the divine. Managing fire, from lighting it to keeping embers alive overnight, was not merely a technical skill. It was a daily lesson absorbed by the community. Children learned by observing adults, and respect for safety and discipline was taught in every gesture. Even the humblest homes reflected a harmony between necessity and devotion. The glow of embers witnessed the story of each family, their labor, fears, and hope. At sunrise, when the first light hit the courtyards and the ovens still held the warmth of night, families resumed their work. Dying embers were stirred, flour kneaded, bread placed in the tannur, and food prepared for the new day. Life revolved around this cycle: fire, bread, light, and faith, in perfect synchrony. Each Galilean home became a microcosm where the mundane and the sacred intertwined, and where Jesus found the perfect metaphor for inner light and God's constant presence in daily life. In every spark, every oven, and every loaf baked, the lesson extended beyond routine. Faith was not just words but concrete actions that illuminated existence, guided steps, and sustained hope in difficult days. The carefully tended fire symbolized a light that must never be extinguished, reminding all that life and faith were kept alive only through attention, love, and discipline.